everybody, how you doing? I want to ask a question. Have you felt like you're doing a whole lot? Surely, as men, we're trying to do the family thing. We're trying to do business thing. If you're trying to create a new lane of finance for your home, it's sometimes it feels like it's so much that you're trying to be able to do and get together, but trying to find that thin line of balancing all of these things sometimes can be difficult. So today I have someone on that I know is going to help us in that specific area to make sure that not only are we great in the things that we do, but how to balance it in a great balance in this balancing act called life. So if that is you, or you know somebody that needs to be able to hear this, go ahead and share. I'm going to give you some time and moment to be able to share before we dive in. So are you ready? Let's go. I'm excited. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Focus on Greatness podcast. My name is Hiram, and on this platform, we highlight ways where men can be able to experience greatness in their everyday lives. And today I found someone that can be able to help us continue to be great and give us the tools that we need to be able to do that. Now, before we go any further, I want you to do me a favor. If you have not already and you're listening, watching this live, or somebody told you about the podcast, do me a favor and subscribe. You can subscribe on Google, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor, or on any of the hundreds of different other platforms that are out there that you listen to on. You can be able to subscribe, and the reason why is because of this. Sometimes when we hear information, sometimes we can't sit down at a computer or just sit on our phones. We're trying to also still do life. And listening to podcasts help you to be able to do that on the go. So you can do this walking. I know people that do it working out. I know people that do it while they're washing dishes. You can do this in so many various of ways. And so for you to continue these conversations with us, you can be able to make sure that you subscribe so you can be notified of any time that we go on. Now, if you are watching this right now, I want you to do me a favor and share. I want you to also continue to follow. I want you to make sure you're following on my Facebook page or YouTube. You can be able to follow, but also make sure that you like. All of these different pieces allow more people to know about this podcast and be able to help more men and more people to be able to be great in their own lives. So I want to know, are you ready to be able to jump into this conversation? I personally have been waiting for this moment. So before we go, I want you to do me a favor. Make sure you get right to the point where you can send some hearts and some likes and some love on your phone. If you're watching this live, if you're in your car, do me a favor, take your finger and get it ready to be able to tap on the top of the steering wheel. If you're taking a walk, don't be the weird person. Do me a favor and just tap very lightly as we introduce Madeline, someone that I know is going to help us all. Please give a warm welcome and warm love to Madeline. How you doing, ma'am?
I am doing great, and I am thrilled to be here. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming on. Thanks for taking some time to be a part of this conversation. Do me a favor before we go allow the audience to kind of get a chance to get to know you and tell them just a little bit about yourself before we go in.
Well, where to start with that? Let me say this. That when I was 15 years old, we'll jump in the deep end here. Okay. When I was 15 years old, my father, who was 42 years old, died suddenly of what the doctors said was a cerebral hemorrhage. My mother said he died of work.
Wow.
So even though I started my career 100 years ago in a clinical chemistry lab and worked for the USDA biological control lab and the cardiac catheter lab and all that kind of stuff, little by little, before pivoting was a really cool thing, I was pivoting and pivoting again and pivoting and always sort of inching closer and closer to working directly with people. And my clients are 70% men.
Mm-hmm.
And no surprise, given my history,
Right.
that I help professionals, hard-driven professionals and
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs to find more, to learn how to manage their minds so they can have
Right.
more hours in the day, more energy and clarity and peace of mind, and being able to maintain, not to sacrifice or give it up, but to maintain that high performance without burning out in all areas of their lives. I'm a big fan and proponent of everything is connected to everything else. You can't have it going great in one part of your life and expect that your whole life is going to be sustainably great. We
Right.
need to have health and well-being everywhere. And again, the upside of that is everything is connected to everything else. So the gains you make in one part of your life are going to transfer over. So I love when I'll hear from a client, oh my God, I'm sleeping. I didn't even know that I wasn't. Or they just took me off my blood pressure medication. I don't need that anymore.
Mm.
Or my teenage daughter is telling me how much more available I am now and how much she appreciates that.
Mm.
And those aren't even things we were necessarily talking about directly. And that's what I
Right.
mean by everything connected to everything else. So I'll pause there for you.
Well, first off, I do want to start off for the listening audience. If you're listening to this on the podcast platform, you don't have the beauty of being able to see what I'm seeing. Um, and even though you have your tenure of time that you've been doing what you're doing, you
My
look very good. I like that. That was a good way of being able to say it. But you look very
do
good
you
for
see
your
my
young.
bike back there?
Yes, I do.
I'm trying. I'm trying. I'm
You're
trying to
doing
stay
great.
healthy
You're
and well.
doing
You
great.
know, my brother is a few years older than I am, and when we
Hmm.
both passed 42 years old, we were
Hmm.
like high fiving because we both like made it, but we both work at that. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank
Well,
you.
I
Thank
I
you. Thank you.
wanted I wanted to make sure that I brought you on because just like you already have started this conversation with, is there are so many people, surely in the day and age that we're in, everyone is trying to drive to become the best at what they do. You have a lot of people that are trying to now jump into the entrepreneurial world,
Many.
but trying to do that and trying to do family and trying to still do whatever other aspects of their lives that they have going on. And I hear a lot of people saying we need to drive, we need to push, we need to get your hustle on and all of those pieces. But I don't hear a lot of we need the balance. Um,
Well, everybody knows, I think,
mhm,
that we need the balance.
right.
I'm not sure people know how to um, create that. Like,
Yeah.
where do you start?
Right.
So,
Right. Right. And that's really where, because even with me, I'm gonna go ahead and we're just because
okay.
we had a great prep conversation. I'll say that. But even with me, I'm a husband. I am a father of two boys, very energetic boys.
How old
Uh,
are they?
my oldest is 10. Well, he'll be turning 10 next month. My youngest is 8. So
Okay.
they're both in the greatest energetic moments of their life. And I have I still work a regular 9 to 5. I have this beautiful podcast that we're doing, as well as me and my wife just started on the end of last year. We opened up a clothing boutique online part, and so we're doing per se a lot. But so where with me, it's like, how do I find that part of the balance?
How do you know you haven't?
Well, because I'm in some senses this. I hear, I would say, the cries of the children. Daddy, you're always working.
Oh,
When
okay.
do we go, when are you going to have time for us? Then you hear even sometimes in the
Okay.
relationship, you're always doing this. When are we going to get our time? And then just feeling the exhaustion of it all. As a man, feeling the mental pressure that I might not still be doing enough. Because all these dreams or goals and how I really want my family to live, and all of those pieces
Yeah.
um, are all in this whole big bubble called my life.
You're my ideal client. You are. I can't tell you. Sometimes my clients will tell me
Mhm.
what has been happening. And I like fill up with tears because it's such a miracle to me. It seems like because people,
Wow.
when we unpack the acronym GREAT,
Mhm.
I'll tell you how people don't really believe necessarily that they can really have a great life and earn a great living at the
Mm.
same time. So that's right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So the there which those that are listening, those that are watching, you are going to get the opportunity to uh, get this. She does have a beautiful, powerful book. We are going to talk about it probably later on. Well, we'll be talking probably throughout the entirety of the book. But I want to make sure y'all go to her website. Those information will be in the description. So you'll be able to go check it out, get it, make sure that you purchase it. Again, the purpose of having someone like this beautiful lady I have on is so that we can gain the help. Uh, I think it will be wild or crazy for us to continue to push the way we are
Yep.
and not be able to get the wisdom that we need. My uncle, I had my uncle. He passed away a couple years back now, but he was a pastor, and he worked very, very, very hard,
Yeah.
very, very hard, but he ended up passing away. And you do hear, even as you were stating, sometimes you can hear, well, man, did they work themselves to death? Did they work so hard that they just worked themselves,
I
and
watched it happening.
so and that's really, I would rather be able to have this wisdom now so that we don't have to get to that point. Um,
I have a question for you. By the way, the funny part of that not so funny story about my father passing away at such a
mhm.
young age, and then I'll ask you my question, um, is that I was a very mouthy little girl. I'm still kind of mouthy.
Uh-uh.
And because of that, I was like being grounded all the time. So when he died, I actually, even though I was already 15, you would think I would know
Mhm.
better, but there's no accounting for what goes on in the minds of children. I thought it was my fault.
Mm.
So when you're overworking yourself and driving yourself into the ground, it's not
Wow.
even just that God forbid they would lose you, but the child's mind does a whole thing about it that's really a heavy load.
Mm,
And
mm, mm,
there
mm.
was this moment, this beautiful moment, my mother's shining moment as a mother,
Mhm.
when I broke down at the cemetery with her and I said how all my fault it was because they used to call it fresh. I was
Mhm.
fresh. I don't know if
Mhm.
we still call it fresh, but I was fresh. And she said, "No, honey, it wasn't you. It was work." My father was a clothing manufacturer. He was a
Mm.
contractor with the New York
Wow.
fashion houses, which might interest you because you
Yes.
and your wife have your online thing. And he he I think he left the house at 5 in the morning every day and came home at 10 at night. Except
Wow.
on Sunday, he came home midday. So he was, yeah.
Mm,
So my
mm,
question though, and
mhm.
I'm very curious about whether this is a good idea or not, what you would think about it, is a men's group.
Mm.
Do you ever think about like having a group of you as a sort of a mastermind of you,
Um,
business builders
hmm,
who want to have work-life balance, kind of. I don't like the word balance, by the way, and we can
right,
talk about that, but I'll I'll use it now because we all know what we're talking about.
right, right.
What do you
I
think? What do you think of that idea? Do you think
actually
men would
like.
like to have a men's group?
I think they really would. And I think I love that idea. Because I don't think, well, one personally, I don't know any personally, any group specifically for what you're sharing. Uh,
Really?
yeah, I don't know any group that's that for about that, but I think that that is something that is needed. Because again, same factor. Yeah, there might be a better way to do what we're doing. Um, and having something like that can be able to kind of like either relieve some of the extra pressure that we feel as men, in reference to just sometimes, like I'll say for me, overthinking and saying, okay, I haven't done enough. And I don't have nobody else to tell me that I have. I don't have another man saying, "No, dude, I think I think you've worked hard enough. It might not be where you're seeing it at this point, but I think you might not need to go as deep as, go harder than you think you're already, because you're either going to exhaust you or exhaust the relationship that you have."
So
Um,
actually, you can imagine in a mastermind
mhm.
group of men, they could be giving each other tips
Yeah.
on how to do things smarter, not harder,
Yes.
and freeing up the energy, which happens with the people that I work with. You know, client after client after client
Wow.
are telling me how much more connected they are to their families and how that energizes them for their
Mhm.
business. Because
Wow.
there's that like nagging guilt over here that
Hmm.
you're not being a good enough dad, which kind of, it's like a dark cloud goes around with you
Yeah.
everywhere and drains energy. It's like carrying a big rock or a big sack, or it's heavy.
Yeah,
So
it is. It
yes, all
is.
right, well, maybe we'll talk more about that.
But the question I have, just
Yeah.
to kind of go more into that statement, is because again, I know with me, sometimes I do feel I was raised as an only child,
Hmm.
up to probably 15 years, 16 years old, is when my mom actually got remarried. So for me, surely when I got married and we had our boys, my thought process was I want to show them how to be a good man. So sometimes this is, you gotta sacrifice for your children, and I gotta sacrifice to make sure that I'm providing, and and all of those things. But like you said, sometimes even doing per se everything you feel like physically you could do,
Yeah.
sometimes it still doesn't feel like it's good enough. And it probably is not even like, with me, it's not even that, like my boys right now, anything I do is a superhero tactic. It's the best thing ever in the world. So it's not like they're saying, "Oh, dad, we don't feel like you're doing enough." More so than is me internally feeling like maybe I'm not. So
Well,
how do you?
which is why I say, if you like ask me what I do, what my elevator thing is,
Hmm.
I'll say I teach people how to manage their minds so they can have
Yeah.
happier, healthier, productive lives. But it begins with managing the mind. One of
Mm,
my tutors said to me once a long time ago, the mind is like a 2-year-old who's winning
mm.
and wreaking havoc all over the house. It's like the mind is like an out of control 2-year-old or a bunch
I
of
like that.
drunken monkeys.
Mhm.
Or and so disciplining the mind
Mhm.
is really key, so that you are in control of it instead of it in control of you, so
Yeah.
that you can bring the focus of your attention to your work when it belongs there. But you can also bring the focus of your attention to your children when it belongs there. And the thing is to get really in charge of the focus of your attention. And most humans are really kind of, well, lame, sloppy. Most of us are very sloppy about that unless we make a
Right.
concerted effort to get command of the mind, which you can do. I
Well,
mean,
how do you start?
not, hmm?
I said, well, how do we start that?
How do we start that? So you mentioned on my website.
Mhm,
So there's there are a variety of offerings. Some of them are free.
mhm,
So on my website, there's a pull down and it says complimentary mind management exercises. There's a whole
mhm.
bunch of exercises there. One of them is called power breathing,
Okay.
and that takes less than 30 seconds.
Mm,
And it's a special kind of breathing
okay.
that kicks things upstairs to your executive brain so that you're not reacting from your
Mm,
reptilian brain, from your lower level, just reacting to the moment. But
right.
you can actually, stop and kick it upstairs and then say to your higher brain, what do you think needs to happen here?
Mm,
Is there something to be done here?
right.
So there are all of those exercises. Then there's the book. There's now an online course, and
Mhm,
there's working with me individually. And
mhm.
then I kind of like this idea of a mastermind group, which I haven't launched yet, but you and I are going to talk about that later. So we'll see.
Yes, ma'am. I love that. So again, for those that are listening and those that are watching, please, we need to make sure that we take advantage of this, because again, these are struggles that we all have, and so for us to get the proper change of mind and help that we need for our mental, we need to be able to take advantage of these. And so, I'm thankful for this beautiful moment in time because I'm getting some help here, and so so people that are listening, you know normally in the conversation I'll give a little bit of my own personal, so people can kind of feel like they relate to what
Yeah,
to the situation, and it's not just information.
that's good.
But for whatever reason I feel like I'm sitting on the couch and I'm the one getting the help and to talk to today, which is wonderful. I'm loving it. So
I'm
you
waiting. I'm waiting for you to ask me what grade is.
I am about to. We're going to get to that point because I know that's something that we've talked about in the entry. Um, so the question that I have is, you made this statement. You used I guess for in the mind you used two different terms. You used our, I guess you would say, basic mind, and then you said higher. You used, it was the reptilian or reptile mind, and then the higher mind. What's the difference between the two?
So this is the hand model of the brain.
Okay.
Oh, well, you guys maybe can't see it if you're just listening to the podcast. It's a fist.
Okay.
And in the middle of the fist is my thumb.
Mm,
So we have the lower brain stem as kind of the wrist.
okay.
And then in the middle is the thumb. That's the emotional center. That's where there's fight, flight, freeze.
Hmm.
So, like the senses pick up, oh, actually, maybe your client or the person at the grocery store is pissed off. The brain
Mhm.
thinks it's a saber-toothed tiger. And so this thing, yeah, it does. So
Right.
this thing in the middle of your brain starts going berserk.
Hmm.
That's the lower brain, the more reptilian kind of lower brain centers, the ones that evolved
Hmm.
earliest on.
Okay.
And when that goes berserk, it knocks the higher functioning, reason and planning and responding rather than
Gotcha.
reacting. All the
Okay.
all the things that humans can do that a snake can't. So, but when this thing is going nuts in the middle
Hmm.
here. It
Hmm.
knocks all these fingers, the higher brain, the cortex, offline, and you don't even have access to it. So
Mm.
you can't think well about what to do next because you're not thinking from your higher brain center. So this power
Wow.
breathing, what the power breathing does is it stimulates, I'll try not to get too technical here, the polyvagal nerve, which runs through your core all the way up to your brain.
Hmm.
It settles down the sympathetic nervous system and puts you into parasympathetic, which is calming.
Okay.
And once you've calmed yourself, your higher brain comes back online and you're like so much smarter. You know, like you're acting and deciding and planning and responding from a much smarter part of you.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that is such a big part of getting control over the mind in
Hmm.
three simple less than 30 seconds breaths. And all of
Wow.
my clients have got the hang of that. It's 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 free,
Hmm.
it's quick, and it works.
Right. It works. So
Yep.
when we do that, it basically it gets us out of emotional thinking. If I'm hearing it correct, it gets us kind of like out of the emotional thinking to
The
more of a
stupid
rash.
the stupid thinking.
I was trying to be nice.
No,
Yes, yeah, it does. It gets us more of a stupid thinking to more of a rational, wiser thought process.
yeah.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. All right. Good. That does help. That does help a whole lot. So I normally wait later on, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and ask you now, and then we can because I feel like it's gonna evolve to a whole new form of conversations, which I'm excited to.
Yeah.
So the question that I ask all everyone that comes on
Mhm.
is this question: What's greatness to you?
So I'm going to tell you the first line of my book, Getting to Great.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the first line of the book is this: A great life
Hmm.
depends on a great fit between who you are, who we are, and the environments in which we work and live.
Hmm.
So it's not really a new concept. It goes
Right.
back at least as far as Darwin, when he figured out, he and Wallace, the other guy,
Mhm.
figured out that the world belongs to those who are best adapted to the environment. The rest
Wow.
of them go extinct.
Right. Yeah.
And so many people are have themselves in environments where somebody told them they should be doing things someone said they should do, and they're not really very well aligned. So I would say greatness is alignment. They're
Hmm.
not very well aligned with who they really are, what really matters to them, what really makes them tick.
Hmm. I
So
like
I've had clients, many clients
that. Hmm.
with a greater awareness of who they are have been able to fall in love with exactly where they already were. But I've had people like pick up their families and move to New Zealand.
Mm.
I've had people change, no, literally that was an
Oh, that was
MD.
a real case.
Yeah, that
Wow.
that was an MD who thought he would appreciate the healthcare system better there than here. And
Mm.
he loved adventure. So they were all on board and very excited, and off they went. Then I have other people who were working in defense and switched to finance and went from the East Coast to the West Coast. And people have made these dramatic transformations that
Mm.
thrill them. There are people who working for large companies and realize they really wanted to own their own.
Yeah.
So now they have investors throwing gazillions of dollars at them and they're happy as clams. And that's the guy who's not on blood pressure medication anymore because he's
Wow.
who's the same guy whose daughter said
Mhm.
how much she appreciates how present he is. Now he has more responsibility, and this is for you. He
Yeah.
has more responsibility than he's ever had on his
Mm.
plate, on his own plate. But he's in such good alignment that he's not wasting energy like fighting the waves that are working against him. And so he's that's all freed up to create and build and enjoy, and it's really a beautiful thing to see. So
And all of that happened because he found his great.
yeah, this was a guy. So in a past life I still am actually,
Mhm.
in addition to being a board certified executive career and life coach, I am also a licensed and Harvard trained psychotherapist. And I always say to my clients about, peeling the onion, they call it. I always say to them, only as much as is necessary to get the job done. And the job is not your past. Your
Right.
job is your present and your future. So if there's something we can cherry pick from there, we're not staying there.
Right. Right.
It's over. But if there's something we can cherry pick from your childhood or your past that can help us now to make that really great life for you,
Hmm.
then let's go get it and bring it forward. So the man that I was talking about
Hmm.
was raised by parents he thought were inept.
Hmm.
And he kept finding himself working in organizations for people he thought were inept.
Mm.
Surprise, surprise. And I said to him, look, people keep these dramas going, not not because they want to suffer. It's more because they want to master it. It's like unfinished business. They want to see it through. So it's like a conversation that they're still having, only they're not having it with their parents anymore. So
Mm.
almost everybody, when they go into an organizational setting,
Hmm.
recreates something from their early family life, and
Right.
they don't even know it. But so I said to him, you can keep living in this drama. That's totally up to you. But I just want you to understand that you need to have ineptness all around you in order to keep it alive, this little drama you're living. And he said, oh my God, I don't want to be stuck with this ineptness for the rest of my life. And I said, well, if you want to keep the drama going, you'll have to.
Right.
Otherwise, you can put the drama down. And so now he has these two partners who he admires so much. And they're all
Mm.
so grateful to each other because they all bring something really important and different to the table. And
Right.
it's a completely different movie he's living in.
Mm.
So yeah.
Okay. Because all right. So my mind is like going in so many places right now, but because my thought process is one, you made a statement in reference to he's doing more now
Yeah.
than he was before,
Yes.
but he has more peace in some sense than he did before.
Tons
Um,
more peace.
yeah.
And he has more energy
Hmm.
and better focus. He's not making mistakes. He's not wasting time. It's like it's completely different.
Right, but the thing that I guess that for me when I heard it's almost confusing to a person that feels like with the work that I'm doing now, I
Yes.
almost that is it, to me it's almost the work that I'm doing now is a lot, and
Yep.
it feels like everything here is per se chaotic. It's not really peaceful. So
I
then to
know.
say you're doing more and you have
Yes.
peace here is almost like How?
I
How?
have a really good example of that. This
Mhm,
was a woman who was an attorney.
mhm,
She was hanging on by a thread. She was so burnt out from this work that she was in healthcare regulation, found it really tedious, really boring, and really absolutely couldn't stand it. As she began to realize that what really mattered to her more than anything in the world was her family, and
mhm.
this job that she was like being mean to the job
Yeah.
was actually supporting beautifully this family, and all the fun they were having was being paid for by this job. She was bad
Wow.
mouthing all the time, and when she realized that this job really nourished her
Mhm.
life and her family, she it eased all of this
Mm.
gnawing thing, and it
Yeah.
freed up all of this energy. And I'm not making this up. The next thing I know, and this is to your point, she
Mhm.
was already working so hard. She said, "My husband and my son and I just built one of those Amazon side hustles."
Wow.
And I'm like, "I'm sorry, what? Aren't you the one who was working too hard and you're all burnt out?" But she felt so much more in alignment when she
Yeah.
realized nothing mattered more to her than her family. The job was supporting the family, all the pieces fit. So
Mhm.
she had all this energy. And so she was having meetings with her husband and her son. So now she's spending more time with them
Yep.
because they're creating this thing together. And it really knocked my socks off that somebody who was that exhausted just by being in better alignment found all this energy, so much so that she's
Yeah.
building this whole side thing, which she was hoping if it did well,
Mhm.
she could leave the other. So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. That's that's excellent. And
when you're
so for
when you're doing right things right,
yeah.
you have more hours in the day, more energy, more clarity, more focus. Everything is easier, and there's
Mhm.
more of you to apply. So
Wow.
you're just not as exhausted, and you're just having way more fun.
So for everyone that is watching and listening, and you might be saying like I say, where you get to the end of your day and it's like I don't know how I can do anymore. You get probably to half of thinking about all the stuff that for me my wife says it more probably than I do is I am a very creative person, so I have a whole lot of ideas and things that I would love to do that I believe will be impactful. But you get to a point where it's like, how can I do this? Like, where would I have time? When would I have the energy? When would I have, and you
Yeah.
go through all these
A
exhaustive
lot of
thoughts.
people think of it in terms of more or less.
Hmm.
Like, should I do more? Should I
Yeah,
do less? It's not about more or less. It's about right things right
yeah,
for you as an individual, for you.
yeah, yeah. So
And
if you're hearing this and you're like, I need this help, please, please make sure that you go to her site. Make sure that you follow her on every portion of her social media. But most importantly, I want you to go to her website. I want you to go to the information that she has that is a free portion for you, and I want you to download it. And then after you do that, I want you also to go and buy the book, so that not only do you get the free resource help, but that you also can have something that will also help develop you and help you go through some steps in life to really just become great. And I know for me, this conversation has been a help for me, and it's so much that I can probably say I'm seeing in my head is like, man, if I had what these people are getting, if I can align myself, if I can get everything aligned within me, it's probably so much more I could do. So many, I'm just sitting here thinking while you're talking, like so many more people I could probably be helping, and all of these different facets. If I could just have this alignment, and I'm thankful for you coming on and you
Oh, it was fun.
starting this beautiful initiative of conversation. I can tell that I'm going to have you back. I'm going to have another conversation with you
Good.
because
Good,
it
good, good.
is so many people like myself that
Yeah.
do need this help, and do need this information and do need this wisdom so that we can be the best version of who we're supposed to be. So again, thank you so much
So you
for
can be
coming.
happy,
Yes, I would.
happy,
Yes,
healthy.
I would love that word to be a part of my life. And so again, thank you so much for coming on.
My
Thank you
pleasure.
for
Thank you for having me.
sketching out some time in your day to have a conversation with me. And again, like I said, I promise you I'll have you back on
Thank you.
because we all need this help and this information. So again, please take advantage of all the information. Again, the information to all of her different platforms are in the link in the description below. You can take advantage of that. I want to thank you again for listening, for being a part of this conversation. I love you all, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for listening to today's podcast. I pray that this conversation was impactful to you in some form of way. What I want to make sure is that not only are you hearing and learning this information, but that you're taking the time to apply something, some nugget, some piece that you took from this conversation that you can say, I can apply this for my life to be better. I want you to continue to be with me, and make sure that you're with me every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I love you all, and I'll talk to you next time, right here on the Focus on Greatness family.